Hello everybody and welcome. I am SocioPsycho and today I'm going to bring you my thoughts, my impressions, and even a little bit of my opinion, facts, and everything else about what I've been able to experience thus far in ESO Beta. Now this game is on its way out to release rather fast. And while this is not a review of the game because it is an MMO, and you cannot adequately give a review of the game on an MMO unless you have played to the end of the game. And while I have played in other betas and experienced different aspects and parts of the world, and I got an understanding of a good feel of the beginning, I can bring that to you. What I can't bring though is a false ideology. I will not say this game will fail or it will succeed. That's up to you to make up for your own. I am not a fanboy and I'm not a hater. I'm going to show you what I have experienced, what I feel is good, and what I have seen that is bad. It is up to you to take that information I show you, along with any other information you have, and make up your own ideas. Use this as a tool. Now, the first thing we can start as is the settings. The settings options is exactly what you would think for a big budget MMO. You have plenty of resolution options, you have plenty of high texture graphic options, you have a wide variety of audio and music options, and when you get in the game you have in-game options as well. When we look at the character creation screen, now, they really did do quite well on the character creation. They allow you to be any race for any of the fractions, which is nice, because there's no reason a dark elf shouldn't be in a fraction that he may not normally be on. We all live different lives. So picking your own fraction as whatever you see fit, and then going into class and picking your style, Templar, Dragon Knight, Sorcerer, Nightblade. Nightblade is like the rogue, Templar is a healer fighter, Dragon Knight's a melee tank or DPS. And these are not the hardcore set rules of what you have to be, but we'll go into more of the character development as the video progresses onwards. What we're here for is how the character creation looks. The options and capabilities that they give you in creating your body and creating your face are well detailed. The thing I don't like about the game though, that MMOs seem to slide over, is they tie the facial features together. I mean, yes, you have your hair, which is indicative of its own, but when you come down to adornments, why can't I have a beard and earrings? Why are those not on separate sliders? Facial hair and markings should be the same thing, and it's the same way with facial scars if I want, and war paint. If I want to have scars and war paint, I should be able to have both. I shouldn't be limited to different choices. That doesn't make me feel like my character is the way I want it to be. And for a game, as an MMO, not many games would offer that choice or don't offer that choice to begin with. But I feel I need to point this sort of thing out because this is a game that raises itself above, puts itself on a pedestal and says, hey, be your own character. Be who you want to be. And there's some fault in that. And so whether you say I'm just picking at small stuff or whatnot, these are the facts. So let's go back into the game actually. Now, from a big budget game you would expect a lot, depending if you're new to an MMO crowd or whether you are experienced MMOer. You'll realize that the graphics are not as flushed out as they would be in a single player game, and that is to be expected. That is normal. The graphics though do look good for what they are. Like I said, in the settings you have plenty of options to go to what you need, and it makes the world look very nice for an MMO. This is not a single player game. A lot of information needs to be moved back and forth, and we do not have the infrastructure worldwide and even US countrywide to allow high levels of that sort of information to be traveled to making this game graphically equal to a single player game. Going into an MMO, that's something you either know or you need to keep in consideration. But like I said, with a good computer, the graphics are not bad. They are on par with other graphics of the MMOs, the higher end MMOs. Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic looked very good. This one looks a little different because it's more gritty. Well, that one had a completely different feel to it. Rift also had textured parts of it which were really nice. This is not a special event that they have good graphics in this game. But the real question that you have to ask yourself here is, what exactly do I get? I mean, you're not only just buying the game, right? You're also paying a subscription fee to the game. And the game had a huge budget. We're talking a $200 million budget. That's a lot of money. $200 million invested in making this game. And the issue that may go into that, and this game may suffer from, is that when we look at big budget and title games, such as Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, which had over 800 developers and span of creating the game over 8 years, it turned out to be a flop by many of the MMO crowd. Not bringing the Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic didn't bring anything new to the table, and failing to have an adequate end game content. The story was its best part. It kept you involved and excited about the world. It made you feel like you were the center of the universe, not a tourist in the world. Sadly, this is a feature ESO does not have. In ESO, you feel more like you are a tourist. And we'll get into that and explain why once we go into the quest chains. And I'll try to show you my thoughts and feelings and why I say what I say about that. When you have a game that has a $200 million budget, when we look at a game such as GTA 5, it had a budget of $265 million. But would that game still work if it was an MMO? Would it still succeed if you had to pay a subscription fee to it? While some of the community would still, of course, pay it and play it, we cannot have a guarantee of a game's success or failure just because it has a lot of money thrown into it. This is an issue that the ones publishing these games don't seem to realize. They feel if they throw more money at a game, then it's definitely going to succeed. The reason why it may not is you lose aspects that make a single player game great or even amazing when you tie it down to a multi-shared world. And that's pretty much what a MMO is. There are different versions of an MMO that succeed or fail, but when you come from a single player game to a multi-shared world, it is a complete change of not only your way of looking at the world, but the mechanics that you're used to in the world. And it's the gap of how do I make the game still feel like a single player game to keep all my fans happy, but at the same time also draw in the MMO crowd. It seems as if many of the big budget games are trying to chase a money dream. They throw their own money at projects in hopes of success that others had, such as GTA 5, which made over $1 billion in 3 days. Or what about Blizzard's World of Warcraft? They rake in $810 to $1.7 billion per year. Now that's a big gap, you may think, $810 to $1.7 billion. But that comes down to how many subscribers they have, how many expansions they pop out, how many people buy or are active subscribers, maintenance fees, servers fees, personnel fees, legal fees. There's so much that goes into it. And it feels that just because you throw money at the screen because you see other games succeed doesn't mean that your game will succeed if you throw money at it too. Now, I know what you may be thinking at this point, that he's not very hopeful for the game, or this isn't a fair representation. This video is not some twisted hope that the game fails. This is an honest look. If you're watching this, then you will get an honest look. And if you watch my other videos, you'll get an honest look as well. I have no time for hate or bullshit or lies. Many other people who love the older ESO games, whether it be Morrowind, Oblivion, Skyrim, are really looking forward to this. And there's much of a hype train. And whether they played MMOs or have not, they expect a certain something from the game that they're about to play because of its title. This could lead to issues of disappointment because an MMO is much different than a single player game. Now, for others out there who are not aware yet, this is made by ZeniMax Studios Online, a sister development team, created for this sole purpose. This is not the next in the series If you were not sure or aware of that, figure I'd just throw that out there. So, knowing that the budget is big is important, because then it allows you to think about how the world is. And more importantly, the fact that they want to make this cross-platform. Well, they did make this cross-platform. It's for your console games. And the issue that arises when you create a game for console is that it cannot be optimized completely to reach the full potential that it could if it was optimized for PC. Now, some games are specifically developed for consoles, and they have such a limited or simplistic mechanical base that it works perfectly fine on a console, and there's no need to add anything else. But when you talk about an MMO, an entire world of things to see, to interact with, to explore, what you are building for when you decide to build for a console is how to navigate, whether it be the communication aspects, the control aspects, using your interface, combat. Everything that the game is made for is to be optimized to the maximum settings on the weakest platform. And whether you like it or not, PCs are more optimized than any of your consoles. They will always have more power. That's why the graphics always look better on PC versus anything else. But when you bring the game into that, the combat system has to be fairly adjusted. You cannot have a mouse and keyboard in competition to a controller. The button differences alone make it potentially an unfair. So you ask yourself, well, how do you justify that? And it brings down to a term that I'm sure many of you have heard is dumbing it down for PC. Now, this doesn't mean necessarily that the game is bad because of such, or it doesn't mean that once you've dumbed it down with the graphics and the game doesn't work. But what it means is that the mechanics of the game itself are simplistic. You build your game around moving from a controller, from fighting from a controller, through inventory, through going through your items from a controller manner. And so, from a PC standpoint, that can be quite frustrating when you need to get, and a perfect example of that is how annoying the chat system in the game is. Now, part of that is to blame for it being on multi-platform, and another part of that to blame is because for the fan outcry in the community of wanting the game to be as resembling as much as possible, which is understandable, as the older series. They wanted first-person view, they got it. They didn't want a minimap, they got it. They, X, Y, and Z, and developers are like, we will try to get you X, Y, and Z. What comes down to having such in the case is a more difficult interface in trying to navigate when it comes down to talking or communicating with somebody. If you're doing a quest and you're about to die, you're close to death, and somebody comes out of nowhere and saves your butt, and they're there for about a minute, or maybe a minute's too generous. They're there for about 30 seconds, and they're going to ride off and do their own thing. And you're like, wow, that guy just saved my butt. I want to message him, thank him. I want to maybe friend him. Well, the communicational aspect of being able to do such is quite bothersome. So let's go into how do you communicate with somebody. So we went to town, and we're going to try to communicate with somebody who is moving. So let's see here. First we need to, now we don't want map, so let's close out a map. Get to the chat window, maybe? Okay, no, that's not right. Now I got that up, let's find a player. Okay. So there's somebody, oh wait, I gotta be close to them before I can even go into an options. Okay, so now I need to find somebody who's close, so I hope that person doesn't run away too far, because I want to friend them. Let's see. I gotta click right on them, hold to interact. Now I have options. Add as friend, report player, invite to group, send whisper, cancel, invite to trade. Okay, let's whisper. Hello. Alright, now I'm gonna go back in combat. And I'm gonna fight some more. Let's see if I replied. Okay, now I can go again. Not having a target system is just one area where it causes a problem. If you see somebody that you want to communicate on a fast pace, you may lose that opportunity indefinitely, which is really unfortunate. It sort of divides the world. Another aspect of the game, which is problematic from not having a targeting system, is especially bad for healers. When you go into a group of for healing, the game itself is very cruel or difficult for healing parties. When you are venturing on your own, it comes down to a sort of two bias manifest. You can either destroy everything you run into rather easily, or, fairly good if you're a decent player, or you'll get horribly owned and die horrifically. The level jump in between the two doesn't reward the player. It says, well, adventure on your own and get bored because you can kill everything with so much ease, or group up with people and fight harder content, which leads into other problems. Because when we go into a dungeon itself, which is a headache of its own, because combat comes down to a simple question. How can I get max level? How can I keep playing the game if I'm not impressed with the game? If the combat is so boring, why would I still want to keep playing? And there have been times, if you've ever played Neverwinter Nights MMO, this game has the same combat structure. You have 5 abilities and 1 special, and it's the same layout or familiar layout as Neverwinter Nights. When I played that game as well as this, the main issue I had was, yes, after a few zones, going and leveling and getting used to your character, understanding things, it'll keep you like, okay, depending on your speed, you might have a day, you might have 5 hours, but eventually the repetitiveness of it, the lack of choices, will become very boring. There have been times where I've actually fallen asleep in combat because you swing with your weapon, you use some basic abilities that you can choose from, and you say, oh, whoa, hold on there. This game has stated that you can pick and be whatever class you want. If you're not happy with your choice, pick something else. And while yes, everybody's experience is different depending on what class they pick and depending on how they play the game, what you're able to pick in your class choices, which goes into another knack of them saying, hey, be your own person. Be the character you want to be. Well, okay, so in the weapon category, I can proficient myself with any weapon I want with passive abilities. The passive abilities will only work if I have this weapon active, which kind of makes sense. But that won't make me unique in any way. If I want to use one-handed shield and sword, everybody else who's using that is going to have areas of that selected as well. The armor, same thing. Everybody can wear armor, any type of armor, which of course is nice. It's not something you see. You should be able to wear the type of you want, and different types of armor will benefit different groups. Heavier armor is more for tanks. Lighter armor is more for mages. Medium is more for DPS. This is just the rules that we've gone with. The soul magic is something everybody has. The Fighters Guild, Mages Guild, Undaunted, these are in-game guilds that you start and they have the same lines. These are all things that everybody has, and so you build your character around those. What is different and what is not allowed is the classes. If you are a fighter, a dragon knight, versus a sorcerer, you cannot have any of the sorcerer's abilities or lines or chains. There's 105 abilities in this game. When you compare this to something as Path of the Exile, which has 1,350 abilities, the claim that they say you can be your own character falls short. Why can't I be a tank that summons companions? Being a tank and being a healer, that wouldn't make me unbalanced. I'd do next to no DPS. And then as soon as I ran out of mana, I would die. There have always been areas upon where you have to balance for a MMO, for a multiplayer purpose. But the claim that you can be exactly what you want to be is a lie. Your character is limited in more fashion than one. And going into it and saying, well, this has more availability than another game does not make the claim true. Saying that you can be whatever you want as long as you pick from what we offer you does not make it true, even if the claim still offers more than other MMOs. Which, as I said in the skill evaluation, it does not. Now you say, oh well, those are different games. Yes, and that's fine. But may I remind you that Path of the Exiles did not have a $200 million budget. This game did. Now let's go to a positive note, because I don't want to turn this in, I don't want this to feel like a rant, and I don't want to feel like I'm hating on this game. There are people out there who will love this game, and if you love this game, then play it, love it, share it, do whatever. You know, it's your thing. Go for it. But know what you're getting into for anybody else. When you level up, you have the options to either put a point in Magicka, Health, or Stamina, and you have your stats here. If you're used to RPGs or MMOs, this all looks pretty standard to you. Your inventory space allowance is 35 out of 70, and it stays true to the previous game's arrangements, as well as your gear outlet. You can buy bags, as the price for those bags continue to rise up. I do not know if there is a cap on such, because obviously the price of such scales every time you buy it, and it gets insanely expensive. Another thing I may have looked over real fast about the skills, they have the availability to morph an ability. Once you level up an ability, you can morph the ability, and it will gain a additional passive perk to the ability, such as fills an additional soul gem on soul splitting trap, or also restores health, magicka, and stamina if the enemy dies while affected. And so you can take that into account to build your character a little bit more as you see fit, but still within their rigid outlines. Because those morphs and abilities they're predetermined, they're available to everybody, and so it'll be obvious which one may be better if it's a combat ability. One thing I find quite hideous about this is the map. Now, if you've played other games in general, this doesn't really tell you too much, and some people may like this aesthetic, and I guess this might just come down to personal opinion, but I prefer a map with detail, even if it's a military map with lines and quadrants, geographical correctness, with elevations and in detailed, where you can see, oh, this is a hill, this is a depression, this is a saddle. This is a lot more of, I want to say, ugly. I mean, the world is large, of course. So why would you want your map to just look poor like that? I mean, maybe they'll fix it, maybe they'll pop something out in the future. Like I said, that one right there, that was my personal opinion. It may not bother you. I just like to know exactly where I'm going. And with no minimap, you can sort through the quests you have. If you look at the top right side of my screen, you can sort through the quests you have right here. But from what I've been able to see, from the interface, I can't have more than one quest. Let me make sure real fast. I can't have more than one quest showing at a time. Now, that might not bother you, but as a MMO player, it sort of irks on me. Not having a minimap, which is fine, I don't mind not having a minimap. Not having a minimap stays true to the older ESO games, which is what the fan base wanted. And you have a compass at the top. You see how I'm moving, and the directions are changing, and it shows exactly where my quest is. Talk to this lady. That's fine. But what happens is I end up continuously having to open the map up to make sure I'm in the right area, because, well, it's about exploration, you say. If I'm trying to kill a bunch of things in one area, it's very easy to go the wrong way, and getting lost is a possibility. And having to continuously pop up your map to make sure, okay, wait, it's this way, is a bother. Now you say, well, you have your indicator. That's not an issue. Just keep your eyes glued on the compass, and just follow the compass. And that goes into a graphical issue with the game, on the fact that this is a large game. I mean, there's no lying about it. The zones in this game are huge. You know, it's a large world. And it feels like they said in development, they sat down and they're like, we want a large world. And he said, well, there's some things we need to take in consideration making a large world. It's like, nope, don't care. I want a large world. It's like, oh, okay. Then they make a large world. And a lot of it feels empty. Yeah, you have grass here and there sometimes. But you go to more isolated areas where people don't expect people to go. It's like, we're going to put this island, or we're going to put this tree at the top of this hill. But nobody's going to go there. It's like, well, yeah, somebody's going to go there. And more times than not, you don't find anything. Now, occasionally, you do. But like I said, more times than not, it's just a patch of forgotten areas. There's a lot of places in the game where they don't expect you to be able to get to. And when you are able to get to them, you have nothing there. Now, another thing is, it's an MMO, so it's a world, and it's about exploration. So how do you make it exploration, but also keep the leveling up and together? And the concept was like, well, we made this world so large, but we want to divide it still by zones and player bases. So what we're going to do is we're just going to add mountains everywhere. Just add mountains. Break it up by mountains, and once you break it up by mountains, make it so that they have to go all the way around and find one pathway, one road into the next area, then go all back around, and it turns from this, okay, I can explore, I can climb, I can find a way to go around, to just this linear field and pathway field of it. I go down the road, I complete the quest there. A quest that is generic and does not really invite me into the world. It's just, I need to save this town. I go, I save this town. Okay, good job, you save this town. Now go up the road and save this other town. Okay. My exploration right now is getting impeded by the fact that I'm getting eaten by fish. And I've had this from swimming short distances, from just a couple feet off the shoreline, or swimming, mid-sea. Now, what's better? Is a fatigue bar better? No, maybe not, because that could be exploited in different ways. Or, maybe the fish is a good way. How do you balance something like that? But it's not a point of, I'm not coming at it and saying, well, you need to balance it better. I'm coming at a point of, you are selling your game under this guise of exploration and freedom of choice. And when you limit my exploration, that is not freedom of choice. The combat in this game is very repetitive. You have a multitude of, like I said before, 5 skills. Now, how is this different than another MMO? You may think, well, in a bigger MMO, yes, you can have 2 skill bars. You could have 20 abilities, but you're only going to use 6. That's fine. If I only choose to use 6 for whatever reason, that's my personal choice. If I choose to use 12 of them, that's my personal choice. And you say, well, you're going to use 6 of them. Okay, maybe other of those abilities will have availability at a different time. Well, that right there. So 80% of the time I don't need to use more than 6, or I get to choose to use more than 6 at a time. And then there's certain bosses or anything that will benefit, but I will benefit from using all the other abilities. Now, as you've seen here, I want to go over this hill. It's just a little hillway. All I want to do is get over it. But it does not allow me. Oh, look, I found another way. Nope. Well, maybe I can get up here if I jump. Nope. My exploration is met with nothing. And the zones are divided by these cliffs quite frequently and a lot. You think you're going to go in one direction and explore, and what's going to happen is you're going to run into a cliff and have to find the linear path that they want you to take. I can only assume that this is some safety measure that they've taken in to try to prevent people from just running into different areas and try to keep people more on a more on a story-based progression system, which is fine for an MMO so long as you don't market your game as an explorational freedom of choice. What do I like about this game? The graphics. I mean, the graphics are not ugly at all. The graphics are good. The crafting. Oh wow, the crafting system. When we go into a crafting system, not only do you have the choice to upgrade certain craftings in ability points as well to make your skills even more powerful. When we go to town, now the crafting goes from your, as you would suspect, you gain the materials and you then refine those materials, and upon refining them you gain the leather or iron ore, rawhide, depending on your skill and trade. Put iron ore in here, we refine this, and it gives you an option to choose what type of weapon you want, which is nice, as well as the more ore you put into it, it increases the level and the damage. There's traits and enchantments, the way you want it to look. So that is really nice, and you have apparel as well. These things about the crafting system are actually quite good. It's done in a fashion which you don't see very often. What's not so good though, when we're talking about gear, is the reward system. It feels kind of like it wants to push you more into crafting, and while I understand that's sort of where the basis of most of the Elder Scrolls games rely on is crafting, the rewards from completing a dungeon or killing a boss, completing a quest, are poorly done. You can be a tank like myself, complete a dungeon, and everybody gets their own loot after it's completed, and I get something such as a sorcerer's robe. I wear heavy armor. And now this isn't just one of those things that like is a small occurrence. This is a very common occurrence. You'll gain light armor, medium armor, heavy armor, but only one. You won't have a choice in what you want to pick after you complete a quest. And your option in, it's like saying, okay, we want to push you more towards crafting because the rewards that we're going to give you suck. Like, let's look through my gear. Created by myself, found, created, oh no, that was found. So, I think I made where'd my helmet go? So, the items I've made for myself, minus a few that I found. When we look into the inventory, light armor, medium armor, light, medium, one heavy, light. You see what I'm trying to say. The gear is poorly distributed in this game. It's like, congratulations, you spent X amount of time doing my menial task, which really doesn't make you feel any more progressed in the world, and here's a reward that doesn't even benefit you. It does not reward your time, and that's unfortunately one of the biggest negatives of the game thus far. Now, these are things that could be changed. Complaining about a gear availability in a beta is a point that needs to be made, but not a point that is the game breaker. Like I said, you can still craft, you can still trade. The auction houses are still limited to the PvP zone, so you can't just go up to an auction house in town and do that, which for whatever reason they decided to do that, they did that. But it's something to keep in mind. And why I bring that up is because in between the combat that is boring at times, is frustrating at times, if you go into a dungeon and you think, okay, I'm going to go through this dungeon, it's going to be fun, then your party dies. Oh, okay, try again, your party dies. Well, this is just, party needs to get more in sync. It's, I'm not saying that, well, the difficulty of a game needs to be leveled down. What I'm saying is the combat structure of the game, because of how the controls handle, leaves it so sporadic that the difficulty in managing the game is the hard part. In fact, a game is hard or easy is never an issue. It's how it controls. If a game is easy, if I'm a tank and I pull 12 mobs and I'm like, well, that was easy, then I will pull 20 mobs next time perhaps. But If I'm a tank and I pull 2 mobs and I die, I ask myself, did I die because the difficulty of the game was too difficult? Or did I die because the mechanics of the game made it so that pulling anything would be a severe pain in the ass? As a tank, personally, when you go into a group, you have very limited control on what you are able to handle. And I'm okay with not being in control and not having 20 mobs on me. That's cool. But I do not like, I hate the fact that in between my lack of taunts, my lack of threat, my lack of DPS in comparison to others, I have to sit back and watch as we pull one group which contain up to 6 to 8 mobs or more, and I have to watch as I can barely hold on to 2 or 3, and my party members are getting injured and potentially even dying. That is frustrating and irritating as hell. Now that's my personal experience with the game. Different people may vary in different ways. But the question relies is, well, am I doing something wrong? Or is there a flaw with the mechanics of the game? And it goes back to the fact that the game is made for console, and a limited controller means a limited access and accessibility to what you're able to do in combat. How can you tab target through 20 creatures really fast to get that one guy? Or, oh, I'm seeing the guy run to a healer. I have 5 mobs on me. I see a guy going towards a healer. I'm gonna click over on him real fast and taunt him back. Well, the mouse cursor is locked into the view camera. Whether that's good or bad is up to your preference. But it comes down to the gameplay, and that's what we're talking about, the gameplay here. And this prevents the combat from being a more in-depth, we need to rally around a certain way, to a more, well, there's 8 of them and 4 of us. Let's just hope everything works out okay. And like I said, different people, different groups. If you go in with a bunch of friends and talking on vent, maybe it won't be so bad. But good luck in the middle of combat typing in your chat bar, hey, target the healers, or whatever you wish to communicate, because it's frustrating. That's what I'm just trying to imply, and I'll get off the subject now because I feel I've ranted fairly long enough on this. Now, as you've seen in my fair bit of exploring, one thing that's always bugged me is the lack of creatures outside the main areas. You go to Circle A, and it's killed 20 wolves. Okay, cool. Then there are no more wolves anywhere else on the map. It's like, wait, what? Why can't there be a wolf down here? Why can't there be some monster that, lives out here? And this goes into the whole, what I'm talking about wasted space. I want to go up this hill. I have to find exactly the right path. I can't jump up here. I can't hop up the walls through a sort of platforming technique. I have to find the way they want me to go. And it's as simple as that. Now, I'm not saying I should be able to walk up a wall, that's just silly. But in other games, there are ways for the skilled player to be able to cleverly get up certain areas where you're not supposed to be. And when I reference a game that realizes this, I would have to say WildStar. They have an entire class which is devoted to exploration. So for a game that states that their entire world is for exploration, and you can't even look at this. I can't even jump up this wall. I want to go up. I want to explore. I want to adventure. I want to feel, special. I want to understand what's going on over there. Nope, can't go that way. I have to go their way. I can't go my own way. It's repetitive, linear, and not only just the commands of a combat, but also the commands of walking. The quests are uninspiring. You feel more like a tourist in the world rather than an adventurer in the world. This world doesn't feel like mine. And like I said before, when talking about Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, the one thing that game did amazing was the fact that they had the quests made you feel like your choices mattered. Even if they didn't, they gave you the illusion of choice. And they made you feel special. They made you feel like you were the center of the universe. A little narcissistic, perhaps, but that is what we want as human beings. We want to feel important. We want to be looked at. We want to be liked. We want to be like, hey, I did good and everybody recognizes that. That's what we want in life. Different people have different levels of such, but everybody likes positive reinforcement. This game lacks that. It continually asks me, do you feel any emotional connection with your characters or the NPCs in the game? I had to answer the question honestly, of course, and I took it as seriously as possible. But the question still remained is, how could I have emotional connection with the characters when the dialogue isn't built that way? The writing offers me no incentive to care. I don't have a companion. I don't have a reason to care about the people I meet in the world, because while I do the quest and while it says, congratulations, you have now claimed out this area, the townspeople have been saved, and it may change in my phase of how I see it, maybe, depending on what quest. The world does not interact with me by adding an element of personalization and character. Now, one thing about the quest that is nice is the fact that it's all voice acted. I feel this is a huge boon. How much of that is wasted on people who don't care about the quest at all? I don't know. I personally enjoy having a story told to me, and so I don't have to read all the time. It's nice to just sit back, listen, and be like, oh, okay. But that's me. So that's a positive thing for me. Other people may not care about it. But the way the story is written and dialogued and talked out is unfortunately lacking. And you say, well, look at this. This is a perfect example. Perfect example of what I'm talking about. I'm walking up here and then there's this note. Read the note. It's a quest. So we're walking out here. We come up on this guy. He's in the middle of a road dead. He has a note. We find the note. And we start the quest. Why couldn't this guy be on the shoreline? Why does he have to be right here? Well, this is a main travel area. This is a part where people are going to walk through. This is the road. People are going to see this. Why couldn't there be two things? Why couldn't the note have blown down towards the shore and you can find it on the shore, or you can find his body here? His body could be a marker. Be like, oh, he's a scout. It looks like he might have orders. They might have been blown down towards the river. It's this level of interaction with the quests and the world that don't make you feel involved in it. None of the quests make you feel like... When we talk about quests and interactions with the world, while Star Wars had a good immersion aspect, the quest dialogues and many of the quest interaction with the world were not that great. But a game that did do terrific with that was The Secret World. They had quests in there that made you think, that made you walk around, that made you backtrack, that were clues and puzzles and poetry, little indentations upon the world that meant nothing more than a symbol. But now all of a sudden I have a quest that leads me to finding those puzzles, those little graphical annotations carved into a side of a tree or on a manhole are now significantly important, and I have to follow these clues. This game says here's the world, there are certain areas to interact with, complete those areas, move on to the next area. This is gravely unfortunate for a game of a budget size it has, as we're coming up again to another area that is plain and ugly. Look at this. There's not even grass down there. There's one tree. Oh, I want to get up here. Can I get up here? We've been over this before. I can't climb this little ridge. I can go down. Oh yeah, I can go down, but I can't go up. Some would say perhaps I'm being too harsh on the game. That I need to have a better view on the game. I'm simply pointing out the facts. Now yes, I've had some personal annotations in this, but the facts of the game are the facts. I am not a fanboy of the series, and I'm not a hater of the series. I don't care if this game succeeds, and I don't care if this game fails. But I'm not going to sit here and let a game lie to me, and more importantly, lie to you and pretend to be something that it's clearly not. This feels like a grasp at straws. We want you to play an ESO game knowing that our title will make you rush in and that you will be willing to accept the limited amount of controls because it's cross-platform. Like I said, whether this game succeeds or fails, I don't care. Whether it goes free-to-play or subscription, I don't care. I mean, look at this. A game that claims that it has freedom of exploration. And I've hit an invisible wall. Why is there an invisible wall here? This is not just the first occurrence. This is normal. This is large scale. This is across multiple maps. I didn't just pick this map because I knew there was issues in this map. This is an issue in the entire world. You can't go where you want to go. PvP wise, you'll say, well, this game has PvP. I love PvP, and it's good. It offers that which no other game does. And that goes into an aspect of yes. If you like this game, you'll like this game. If it offers things to you that you find interesting, then you'll do that. But the combat is not interactive and exciting, and it will get dull eventually. What you do, people, with your own money is completely up to you. Buy the game, don't buy the game, subscribe to the game per month, don't subscribe to the game per month. I don't care. If this game helps you in making your fears go away or justifying them, if it makes up your mind, then cool. If you hate this video, then, that's on you. Because I'm not here bashing the game. I'm here simply telling it and showing it to you for what it is. Now, I'm sure there are things I've overlooked. As I said, it's an MMO. You can't play and you can't see everything. I don't know how every character feels. I don't know how every ability runs. I don't know how every landscape looks. I don't know how the endgame content is. I don't know if the first 2 or 3 dungeons suck, or are too hard or too difficult, if it balances out. I don't know if... There's so many things to an MMO that you can't know all of it from having a quick look at this. And I want to reiterate that I never claim to have all the answers. Another thing that is of interest is you have these dark anchors. Now, if you played a game called Rift, then you would be familiar with this concept. The difference between the two is that the dark anchors are a bit more aggressive. It's one of those forced, well, there's a couple issues. One, it doesn't show on the map, because the map is not intuitive. That's not a Rift, that's just King Guard's domain, that's where we are. So you can't look at a map and say, okay, well, there's a rift popping up here, there's a rift popping up there, and there's no easy way to just join into a group of people. If you get there and there's a group, there is, if there isn't, there isn't. These rifts are more group events, rather than something you can experience for yourself. And that's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that to be able to do this piece of content, you need to have people with you. It's one of those scale points where it says, hey, you can explore an adventure by yourself, and you can kill a lot of little creatures, but if you actually go up against something tough, you're gonna die. And it's just unfortunate that, because right where we are, right here, in this little corner, how many people are gonna come up that way? How many people are gonna come over here, where they can't even know where a rift is, and battle this? Maybe if I wait long enough, somebody will come by. Will it just be one person? 2 people? Will it be enough? Not likely. It's an interesting mechanic which has been done already before, and that's why I feel they've implemented it. But I don't feel they've implemented it correctly. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been an impressions video, a first look, if you would, an idea into the game, because you already know all the positives of the game. You already know it has a great crafting system. The combat system you'll either like or you'll hate. The controls are the same way. It's one of those games that just comes down to it that you'll either like it or you'll hate it. And so you've either already made up your mind about it, and this just shows the things that you may not have seen. So much hype about the game, so much love and desire for it. Well, what about all these little things that implement how the game plays and feels, how it reacts to you or doesn't react to you? Don't go into this thinking that it's going to be way more than you ever hope it would be. If you go in thinking everything's going to be amazing and nothing's going to ever go bad with it, you'll get shattered the first time something happens that you don't want it to. Thank you for watching. I hope this video has been helpful to you. I hope I haven't wasted your time. And I have been SocioPsycho, taking a quick look at my experiences in the world and the joys of exploring.